I want to welcome to the show for a great interview and discussion, Josh Turner. Josh is a former and reformed neo-Nazi skinhead. Josh, welcome, man.
Thank you, Kyle. Good to be here, a fan of the show, and thanks for having me.
I can't tell you, man. I'm very, very excited about this conversation. I mean, we really don't do many interviews on Secular Talk. We had Ed Schultz on a few times, and we had Cenk on and Jimmy Dore, but I'm not like an interview kind of guy. I just more like to hear myself talk because I'm a dick like that. But your story is so interesting that I reached out to you, and I was like, let's make this happen, man, because this is one of those things that, people need to hear your story. It's absolutely fascinating.
Well, thank you. Those are some big names to compete with, so hopefully I can hold your audience's attention throughout this interview.
Well, I think your story is much more interesting than theirs. No disrespect to them, because I'm kind of following in their footsteps. But so why don't you go ahead and tell us. So I know you told me that you were raised an evangelical Christian, and then at what point down the line, like how old were you when you found yourself kind of hanging out with some sort of a white supremacist crowd, or what was the progression, and how old were you? I'm very curious about that.
Okay, sure. Well, as you said, I was raised in an evangelical fundamentalist Christian home. We went to Calvary Chapel, which is a very fundamentalist branch of Christianity. It was founded by Chuck Smith in Costa Mesa, California. And I went to a Christian private school where I was taught that Jesus Christ saved me because he was God and God is love, and that we had to spread that love right after the principal got done beating my ass for interrupting class with the paddle. Oh. So, that's the kind of stuff I grew up with at home and at school, just really strict fundamentalism. And so I rebelled at a very young age, as you can imagine. So I was in and out of correctional institutions at 14, started using drugs at 14 years old, just really to rebel against, the strictness at home and at school. And I grew up in a town called Paradise, California, 92% white, 1% black, a lot of racism. The guys I hung out with were all real racist guys. The movie American History X was like our favorite movie growing up, and we really glorified that. So when I was in and out of these correctional facilities, when I turned 18, I committed a carjacking and went to prison for 4 years. So in prison, I met real Nazi skinheads. These weren't just guys I hung out with on the street at school, we pretended to be Nazis. These were real skinheads. So I was really drawn to them. I was drawn to the intellectual side of the movement. Right away, I was teaching class. I was teaching a whole bunch of skinheads in prison what the swastika really stood for, because none of them really knew what it meant. It was just a fad to them. So I really got into the intellectual side of the movement, and it was about, I'd say, my late teen years, 18 years old, when I got into neo-Nazism in prison.
When it comes to, this is something I'm really, really curious about, because so where did the original racism come from in the area you were? Is it was a cultural thing for so long that it just kind of naturally got passed down from generation to generation, and then when kids are young and rambunctious, they just decide to turn the dial up on that like they would anything else they were into at that age? Is that basically what happened?
Yeah, basically. I can't say that I was ever racist as a kid. It was, honestly, my biological father is half Indonesian, and I knew that growing up. So it wasn't really a racial thing. There just wasn't, like I said, the population of my town was 1% black. I can't remember one black kid going to my school. So it was more of just a fad to us in that town. It was more of just a fashion because of, like I said, the movie American History X. Romper Stomper is another movie that, and a lot of the punk rock bands that were out at the time glorified, ideology like Screwdriver and stuff. So it was more of just a fad. It wasn't really a deep-seated racism or anything like that in that town. And when I got to prison, what appealed to me too was this: the movement was cloaked in this love for your race and not hate for other races kind of mentality. So that kind of appealed to me too. So, I didn't feel like I was being a bad person. I felt like, I was protecting my race. And there's the 14 words that the neo-Nazis, all neo-Nazis know if they're real neo-Nazis, and it's, we must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children. So that sounded like something I could live with and not be, a bad guy, living by that kind of motto.
So when you were doing drugs, was it multiple drugs? Was it one drug? Would you call yourself an addict, or how?
It was just whatever. It was whatever I could get, and it eventually progressed into an addiction because I was just doing it to rebel, and then I was starting to do it to deal with my problems. I mean, imagine a kid, 14 years old, in and out of correctional facilities and doing drugs all the time. He's going to start having some emotional, psychological, all other kinds of issues. So my drug habit became, a way to escape those issues.
Now, did that? I know this is a weird question, but did that slow down your progression into the neo-Nazi movement at all, or did it fuel it more? Or
actually, it was something I had to hide because the neo-Nazi movement is really against drugs. There's some factions that deal with drugs, but they're really shunned in the neo-Nazi community. They one of the precepts, the 88 precepts, are to keep your blood pure of toxins. So yeah, drugs are frowned upon. So that was something that I had to hide during my incarceration.
So one of the reasons why this is so fascinating to me, obviously everybody who listens to the show, they know that I'm probably one of the biggest political junkies on the planet. I can't get enough. I love learning about it, every aspect of it. And I think one of the most fascinating aspects of that are what one would call fringe ideologies. So whether you're talking about neo-Nazism and fascism, or you're talking about really rigid style communism, to me, the mental process and psychological process that goes into those different ideologies is such a case study in sociology and psychology and all these different things meshing together. And I have this theory. I want to run it by you, and I want you to tell me if you think this is true or if I'm off the mark, and you could tell me your motivations in this case. But I have this theory that, and this comes from watching documentaries on this stuff, so it's really not too bright, but I'll run with it anyway. I have this theory that when it comes to the extreme messages, it seems to me like it's actually at its core about anything but the message itself. Like, the people that are in the group might tell you, no, it's purely about the message, but like, take Nazi Germany, for example. Anybody who's ever watched a documentary on Nazi Germany, they see that every 72 feet there's a giant Nazi flag on the street. So everywhere you look, there's Nazi flags. You see that the people who are part of the Nazi party, whether it's the SS, the Gestapo, or whoever, they always have their clothes are perfectly pressed, and there's order, and they're disciplined, and they have this system set up. And it's the old philosopher Thomas Hobbes' idea of order versus non-order, and humans love order because it takes them away from their cognitive dissonance and feeling insecure about stuff. So they just prefer the order for order's sake. So my feeling is that when it comes to neo-Nazism or Nazism or communism, it's always about the structure of the thing that they're getting into, that they just feel like they're part of something bigger than them. And it doesn't even really matter what the message is of the thing. It's just that they're fulfilling this very base, very primitive need to feel like they're a part of something that's organized and it means something.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely right. And, like Carl Jung talked about the universal archetypes, and the Nazis played on that using symbology to draw people in, to make them feel a part of something. And you see the same things going on in churches. If you ever go to a Pentecostal service, it's very reminiscent of a Nuremberg rally, and it's because it gives you that feeling of belonging. It gives you symbols. It gives you songs to sing. It gives you a sense of belonging, a sense of all kinds of things that play into this. And yeah, I absolutely agree with your theory.
And you know what I never understood, man? This really has annoyed me from the beginning. That the major downfall of the really smart ideologies, in my opinion, whether we're talking about progressives or we're talking about social democrats, like, since they're sort of inherently moderate, they cannot copy that really good, like, order and discipline aspect of the fringe movements.
Right.
And if they did, they would be so successful. It would be amazing how successful they are.
Right. But it would contradict what, progressives, want. So that's why they don't do it.
Well, I mean, it depends. If we're just talking about order and structure in an attempt to get universal health care, or we're talking about order and structure in terms of defending freedom of speech, like, these are things where we should have order and structure, but we don't. We're, chickens with our heads cut off, running around, acting like fools, trying to figure out how to get a policy implemented. We're just a whole bunch of, loner, individualistic intellectuals who don't really know how to get together and do some sort of a rally. You go to a progressive gathering, there's like one flag. You go to a fringe movement, there's 817 flags, perfectly pressed suits, and crowds that are waiting on every word of the leader. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Well, there's some lessons I guess we can learn from the Nazis.
Yeah, I know. It sounds so weird to say it like that, but it is kind of true. Same with communists too. I don't know if you've ever seen the videos of, like, Stalin's communist soldiers, the Red Army marching in front of Stalin. It's like, holy shit, how did they do that? How did they make everything? It's like this gigantic show that they put on. Even fucking North Korea. Have you ever seen the thing? Vice has some videos of it where they do this massive show for any visitors who come. And I don't even know how many thousands of people are in this giant stadium, but they all dance a certain way, and there's choreography, and you could tell so much effort went into it. But the fucking assholes who run the country, they just decided instead of feeding their people and, creating an economy, they're going to create this elaborate dance to make themselves look good to the world. I'm always mad that why can't we do both of those things? Why can't we have the cool, organization, is that a weird word? Did I fuck that word up? Organizational? Yeah, I think that's it. Why can't we have that organization and have, the good policies married to it?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
So I want to ask you about the latter part of what you went through. How did you become like a progressive? You want to talk about a good swing, like totally, de-radicalizing yourself and thinking. How did that happen? What was the process? How old were you? What sources led you to that?
Well, it was after prison. A couple of years after prison, I was in my later 20s. And I've always rebelled against Christianity. It's never really felt right to me, so I've always leaned towards atheism. So one day I picked up a copy of Richard Dawkins' God Delusion, and that book actually changed my life. I know it sounds cliche, but it's true, and that kind of got the ball rolling for me to pick up other authors like Sam Harris and Christopher Hitchens, and that's when I realized that I wasn't applying rationality and critical thinking to my life and basing my decisions on evidence instead of, emotion and all these other things that I had picked up as a kid. Parents don't realize when they think religion is innocent, indoctrinating your child is innocent, and it's really not. It's setting your kids up for failure in many ways, and my life's a perfect testament to that. And, but yeah, so Richard Dawkins, he's my man. He saved me.
It's so funny that you say that, man, because on my all-time list of favorite books, number 1, Richard Dawkins' The God Delusion, without question.
Yeah.
So, Sam Harris is up there too. I think End of Faith and Letter to a Christian Nation I have in like my top 5 or my top 10. But Richard Dawkins by far is number 1. He really does. Anybody who hasn't read that book, you're crazy. You're missing out. Go read Richard Dawkins' The God Delusion. By far, in my opinion, the best new atheist book out there.
Absolutely.
So after that, it just became. Did you start getting into whatever economics and politics, and you started just applying rationality all over the place, and you realized, wait, this is awesome. I can not have a doctrine and just go issue by issue and learn and expand my mind, and then it makes me feel happy and fulfilled. Is that the process that happened?
Absolutely. And as I talked about a little bit before, I had an addiction problem, and that carried on into my 20s. So now shine the light of reason on my recovery. And so I went through science-based treatment programs, and I got counseling. I didn't go through NA where they teach you you're powerless and you need a higher power. It was mostly just self-help. It was education, and it was rationality and reason. And like I've applied it to every part of my life. And I've been off parole for, it's been 7 years now. I haven't been in trouble with the law. I've been married for 2 years. We just had a baby girl, our first daughter, Mila. 2 weeks ago. I'm a happy, hard-working guy, and I just owe it all to reason and science, honestly.
Josh, your story is fantastic, man. Congratulations, especially on having a kid and everything, getting everything together. You told me before that you were thinking about maybe writing a book. Are you going to do that?
Yeah, I'm in early stages, I guess you could say. I've been in contact with Michael Shermer. I'm the president of Chico Skeptics. We're kind of on a hiatus right now, but we're hoping to have him for his book tour here. So I'm hoping I can talk to him. Maybe he can shoot me a number for his publisher. I don't know. We'll see. So, yeah, that's something I'm thinking about.
Well, listen, man, number one, I really hope you decide to write that book. I would buy it immediately. Honestly, I'd be excited to read it. And I would, of course, do my best and try to help you plug it. We'd have you on the show. We'd talk about it. I know the audience is probably super interested, just like I am. So definitely get on that, man. But it was great conversation and great story. I mean, your life is fascinating, and I'm just so happy that you were able to get everything together. And now you're like this, this beacon of reason, and you're giving hope to a lot of people. So it's a great thing.
Yeah, thanks. If I can, can I plug a couple of secular drug programs for maybe if any of your audience members out there might be struggling with some addiction problems? There's other alternatives to NA out there.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, there's addictionalternative.com, killingthecraving.com, and unhook.com. You don't have to have faith to get clean, so check those out if you're interested. Thanks for having me on the show so much. And if anybody wants to follow me on Twitter, @Josh McTurner.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Josh. I really appreciate it, man. Have a good one.
You too, Kyle. Thanks.